You ready for this deal, Jimbo?
Hey, I'm ready as I'll ever be.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.
Woo! Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum, located in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. It's old Cody here, and as always, I have my co-host with me, Mr. Rodeo historian himself. Hey, Jimbo, did you read on your Facebook the other day that guy said he just loves our theme song? He said it has that Osage twang to
I did.
it.
That's a friend of mine from over by No Water.
I didn't know we had that much music out here to have that Osage twang to it.
I know it.
Well, anyway, my partner here, Mr. Rodeo historian himself, Jimbo Snively. Good morning, Jimbo. How you doing? Who do we have today?
Hey, Cody boy, it's just another great day in the Osage, man. And Cody, we've got Bobby Goodspeed with us today. Bobby was a 12 times NFR qualifier in the Cav roping. He won the average at the NFR in 1975, I think it was. He roped at the very first NFR in 1959. He was just a kid. And, of course, his dad, if that name sounds familiar, his dad was the great Jess Goodspeed, who was one of the top Cav ropers in his day back in the late 30s and 40s. And his uncle Buck was also a good Cav roper and a good steer roper. Probably best known for his steer roping, and Jess was best known for his Cav roping. But they could do it all.
Legendary family.
Yeah, just a legendary, historic rodeo family. But anyway, we've got Bobby on the line, and Bobby, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Bobby, where did you grow up at? Where'd your dad live?
Wetumpka, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was born and raised there. Went to school there and graduated. Everything.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, did you travel a lot with your dad when he was rodeoing?
No, not a lot. No, I went mostly in high school, and he was always rodeoing. And my mother took me a lot. I mean, just about everywhere. And then when he'd be in, well, of course, he'd go. He'd take me. But yeah, it was just. He was gone, he was back, and I just went to high school rodeos, and that's about it. I never did go. Huh?
I'm sorry, I was going to ask how your dad and Buck got started roping. Who influenced them?
Well, Uncle Buck roped with I don't really know. He roped with Indian, Sam Proctor. And Sam had a little money, his dad did. And his dad was a sheriff at one time at Okemah. And Uncle Buck and Sam would go out and rope all the neighbors' cattle. Yeah. And Sam's dad said, well, if I catch you, you're going to jail. And they said he was pretty tough. Anyway, they got scared and they quit. But they roped a lot of people's cattle in the pastures at Moonlight.
Right.
And I guess they got started. I don't know how Sam and, they roped, how they got started. And Daddy just watched Uncle Buck and Sam. And Daddy said he'd turn the cattle out all day long and sit there and watch them. He said he might get to rope one calf. He didn't want a horse. But he said, I just figured out how to be a little quicker than it was.
Yeah.
But that's about all I really don't know, how they get started or what they done. But Daddy just wrote with them and watched them, and I guess he's a good student because he paid attention and figured out how to be quicker.
Right. Well, Buck was best known for his steer roping, your Uncle Buck, but he was a really good calf roper back in the day, wasn't he?
Yeah, back in the day he had a real good horse. They did. They had a horse called Chigger and a horse called Strychnine, which Daddy said was a way little horse. And they won a lot of money on Strychnine. I mean, in Chigger. He was a building horse more than Strychnine, I guess. But, yeah, those people rode him. And they done good. But, yeah, Uncle Buck was really tough in steer roping where they talked solid, you know.
Right. That Strychnine horse, that was by Oklahoma Star, wasn't it?
Right, yeah. And Chigger was by, well, I'm trying to think, Saddlebred. You know, he's just a horse.
Yeah. Right.
Good looking little horse, but of the right type, you know. He was, yeah, he was, I tell you what, I can't remember nothing anymore.
Right.
He was a saddlebred. He was, yeah, I'll think of it a little bit. But anyway, he was a boy little horse.
Right.
Yeah. But,
you said that that one horse was a good building horse. What buildings were they roped in back then, Bobby?
Well, Uncle Buck won Fort Worth, wasn't there?
Yeah.
So about as big as you get.
Yeah. They still roped in there in that Coliseum, don't they?
Well, yeah, I haven't been there since they got the new one.
Yeah, but I've seen that old one on TV. You know, doing some stuff here on the Cowboy.
Yeah,
channel.
it was quite a building. You know, it was. I thought, well, I guess everything's got to get bigger and better.
Oh yeah, that's just the way it is. But,
right? Yeah, you know, it don't make no difference. They got to make something bigger and better. But towards the old Coliseum, it was a big building, big arena.
Yeah, I'm sure they went back to Madison Square Garden too, didn't they?
Oh yeah. Daddy took. He went back there twice, I think.
Mm-hmm.
How'd they get back
he
there?
said, well, the first time they went on from Fort Madison, they caught a train, put the horse on the train, and everybody rode the train, the stock and all. That's how they get back to New York. I guess it was Kramer that had the stock at that time. But Gene Archery and different ones, you know, but they'd just jump on the train and ride the train, haul horses on the box cars. And so I guess they slept in the box car. I don't know.
Mike McLaughlin, we had him on here a while back, Don's boy, and he said that Don and Toots used to get a calf down there in one of those box cars and practice tying him on the way to New York.
Well, he may have. Well, Don was, when Daddy was going, of course, Daddy was older than Don.
Right.
And, but Don was trick roping.
Right.
Him and Gene.
Yeah.
They wasn't even in roping at that time.
Yeah, that's right.
So it was a pretty good job. But now Toots rode Daddy's, the horse one they called Chigger, the building horse. He rode him at Garden.
Yeah.
In fact, Toots won it that year, and Daddy won second. And they rode, I don't know, it was 8 or 10 kids. And Toots beat Daddy 1/10 of a second on that many kids.
Huh.
So it's pretty close.
What do you remember about Toots Mansfield, Bobby?
He's just a nice guy. I didn't remember him all that much. I remember when I was little, and he tried to buy a rope from me. And anyway, I said, you know, I just had that rope, you know, I mean. And anyway, he said, you want to sell that rope? He's real nice. He's going on with me. But he was serious.
Yeah.
And everybody would need the rope, you know.
Yeah.
And I said, he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you $30 for it.
Wow.
And I said, okay. And then I backed out. And Daddy wasn't too proud of me that. But Daddy and him was real good friends. He said, just don't worry about it. I know he don't want to sell that rope. So I just going on with him. But anyway, Daddy told me, he said, don't ever say, yeah, you'll sell something and back out.
My dad made me sell a pony one time, Jimbo. Some guy said, what do you take for that pony there, boy? And I said, $250, and I thought that was some big money. He said, I'll just buy him. And my dad made me sell him.
Yeah.
Taught me a good lesson.
Yeah.
If I would have backed out on that rope deal, he'd have whipped me with it, probably.
Yeah. Probably. But anyway, I never did back out no more. I never did say, I would or sell or nothing, you know. But, Toots was a nice guy. Him and Daddy were real good friends.
Yeah.
He rode Daddy's horse, and they matched rope 2 or 3 times, and, a couple of times I know. And he called Daddy one day, and he said, Jess, he said, I need a horse. And I don't know if he had quit roping with Juan and them at the time, you know.
Right.
But he said, I need something that scores good and gives me a throw and stops pretty good and just kind of stays on the end of the rope. He said, I don't need one of them real good at stopping horses like you got. And Daddy sold him a gray horse, or he was either a gray or a red roan, or kind of a red roan, or you know how they was back then. Yeah. But he won a lot of money on him. He said, he's just perfect. He said, just what I need.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they was good friends. They got along great.
Huh. Did your dad, did he leg all his calves back then, Bobby?
Yeah, of course. You know, there's big kids.
Sure.
You know, there's tall and big, and all the guys now. I mean, there'd be a few guys that would be tough, but if they had to rope them great big kids, they'd be in trouble.
Right.
Especially the horses.
Yeah. Toots was known for his groundwork. He's supposed to be the best there was on the ground back then.
Well, Toots was ahead of about he's big, stout, tall, rangy guy, but he'd step around behind the calves and hold the rope with his left hand, step around behind them and go around them and flank them. When he first started flanking cattle.
Getting off the left and then would still go around the calf and flank them. Huh.
Right, yeah. So, you know, it changed. He started getting off the left and all that, and going under the rope, you know, and then went flanking, of course. You know, everybody's, it doesn't make any difference. If you start now or whatever, you figure out how to be a little quicker or do something a little quicker. Might not be as good, but it might be for you.
Right.
But, you know, years ago, nobody really roped cattle quick.
Right.
When they run up there, they just track them off down through their rope. Well, they don't track them now.
No, they sure don't. They sure don't.
But, yeah, it's a different game now, what it was then.
Who was the first
Daddy
guy?
flanks it.
Go ahead.
Daddy flanks some calves, you know.
Yeah,
but,
right. Who was the first guy you ever knew of got off the right back then?
First time I ever saw a guy get off the right was at Ada, Oklahoma, at Show Wester.
Yeah, I've heard other people say that.
Yeah, he rode a brown stud horse, and they owned him. But Show was pretty young, or I say pretty young. I was a kid. But I remember Show getting off the right, and I asked Daddy, I said, how come you don't do that? He said, I don't even know how to get on the right. And that was about it. But then the next guy I saw that got off the right was Clifton Smith.
Okay.
And I go to Texas. I'm going to college, and there's a good friend. Well, he ended up being a good friend. I run around with him all the time. Hell, I didn't go to college. I just stayed out there at that ranch and rode. But Leroy Hodges, and he's a little wild, but we had a good time. But he said, we're going down here to roping. And I said, okay. He said, you would have one guy to beat. I said, really? I said, who's the other? He said, they're not like this guy. I said, okay. He said, they call him Snake. I said, Snake? Yeah, I said, he's pretty slick. And it was Clifton Smith.
Yeah. So
we had a 2 or 3 header. at this jackpot. It's pretty good roping, just get together. Well, Clifton went it. I was 13, he was 12. I was 12, he was 11. And I thought, well, I guess he just gets a little faster. So they had another and jackpot. And I tied one in 11, and he was 10, and I tied one 10, he was 9. I said, dang. I don't want to get it. I said, I ain't never been this fast in my life. I said, just out of high school, we never did try to worry about being how fast we was. We just want to be solid, roping time down.
Right.
So the last one, they had a one-hitter, and I think I was 9 or 10, and Clifton tied 1 and 8.
Wow.
And I said, well, so he walked up and he said, Bobby, he said, sure enjoyed having y'all out here. I said, well, I'm glad you did. But I said, I haven't really enjoyed it. Every time I got a little faster, you was faster. So, but I said, it's nice meeting you, and nice to have to be at the roping. And I met his dad there. His dad was a nice guy too.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I ever seen Clifton Smith. Well, they saw him a little later too at the buildings.
Right.
But he's really tough.
You're down there in southern Oklahoma, kind of down in Everett Shaw country, not too far from it. Were you familiar with Everett Shaw down there? Did you know him?
Oh yeah, Everett. Everett and Dad is really good friends. In fact, Stonewall was about. I can't remember. Stonewall was a little south and a little east of Ada, right?
Yes, sir.
And they had a jackpot down there. Every once in a while, but I went down there with it. But I was pretty damn young. But I didn't. Of course, I wasn't roping. Hell, I was about 10 or 12. But Everett, Everett roped his pretty good.
Yeah, he did.
And Daddy said he's solid. Said he's gonna make the same run about every trip. Said he said, "Is you messed up?" I said he I'm dropping my damn phone. He said he'd beat you. Yeah. But anyway, him and Daddy had a match one time. My uncle was supposed to rope, and Uncle Buck hurt his thumb and he couldn't rope, and they had to rope Jake McClure and Buckshot Sauce. And Daddy said, well, we can't rope. If you can't rope, so we can't rope. And Uncle Buck said, get Everett to rope with you. He said, I don't know if Everett will rope or not. Everett said, oh, I don't want to rope Jess. He said, I can't beat them guys. He said, don't worry about it. He said, just go make the same run every trip. Just like you always do. Just go rope like you rope. And I'll take up the slack. He's pretty sure of himself. But Uncle Buck could rope, but Daddy and Everett beat Buckshot Sorrows and Jake McClure in a match. But you never hear about that stuff.
What were they, team tying?
No, they're roping calves.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What have you ever heard?
Boy, that Buckshot Sorrels, that's a historic name right there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then Jake McClure won the world.
Oh, yes, sir.
So it wasn't like that Daddy and Everett didn't beat somebody that could rope.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that Jake McClure could really rope.
Daddy said he really roped pretty.
Yeah. That's what
Jake
my grandfather
said. He said he used a small loop and said he didn't really beat it. He just run right in there. Said, man, he could really rope one pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, my grandfather, you remember Jim, and he said the same thing about Jake, that he could, could sure enough rope.
Yeah. Yeah, did you ever hear about Uncle Buck roping Bobby Crosby?
No.
We want to.
Well, they had a 12-head match. And the Crosby said, Buck said, we're going to have good cattle weigh 455 and 500, something like that, fresh. Well, there's a little conflict between Big Pruitt and Everett and Bobby Crosby and all, You know how they was back and forth.
Yeah.
So Everett, Daddy, Uncle Buck says, I just got one horse to ride. I got to get a horse. He said, well, you can ride old Brown. He said, well, Dick said they were roping them like cattle. Said he'll drag them from across pen. He said, who told you they was roping like cattle? He said, Bob Crosby. Said there's going to be light cattle fresh. He said, you just go on down there and get ready because they'll be big wore out calf steers. So he said, well, I need another horse. He said, well, Everett let you ride old Peanuts. So they take Peanuts and a gray horse that belonged to Clyde Burke and Dick's horse. And they get down there, they had great big wore out, big steer wore out. And Uncle Buck beat Crosby 112 seconds.
Wow.
But you never hear that. No. And they don't. The Texans never tell all that, you know. But that was my understanding. I said I got good friends in Texas. Don't get me wrong. But I said,
were you
I don't know how they was
to meet Bob Crosby yourself?
No, I was too young.
You were probably around Dick Truitt a lot, though, weren't you?
I was off and on, a little. I tell you what, Dick Truitt was a hell of a bulldogger.
Oh yeah, I saw a picture of him bulldogging a buffalo one time.
Yeah, he. The last time I saw him bulldog was at Belize, and I was, I was about 12 years old, 13. And I went with Daddy up there at Belize, and Dick was up at bulldog, and I said, I didn't know he bulldogged. Daddy said, oh yeah, I said he bulldogged damn good. Said really bulldogged good. And Dick won the bulldogging that time.
Yeah.
That rodeo.
Yeah.
And that was the last time I guess that Dick ever bulldogged.
Yeah.
I wonder what these guys like the Goodspeeds or Dick Truitt would do in the timed event now. Hell, they were pretty much doing the timed event everywhere they went.
Yeah.
Daddy was, of course, I'm precious, but my daddy could rope as good as anybody I think that went down the road, and he was just fast. And if he was in his prime now, he'd be flanking. Of course, them little cattle, the bigger they are now, everybody could flank them. But at one time, Daddy was pretty damn bad. And Ike Rood used to try to get Daddy to get in the truck and ride old Baldy. Said, all you got to do is get in the truck and get on the horse. You win first, win the world. Well, when Clyde bought him, he tried to get Daddy to get in the truck and go with him. Said, all you got to do is get in and go with him. You win the world. That's how old Baldy fit Daddy. But my uncle said that. And Troy Porter said, he told Roy Johnson one time, he said, Troy, he said, I guess old Baldy fits you better than anybody ever ride you. They were roadie. He said, nope, one man. He said, nobody could ride him like Jess Goodspeed. Said he just fit him like a glove. But Daddy said, I wished I'd have done it now. Got in the truck, went with Ike and whatever, but in Clyde, but should have bought him, I guess, later on.
Yeah.
But yeah. I can't remember how fast Uncle Buck was. Pretty solid, he was solid. But Daddy was really fast. But yeah, Daddy would, and Uncle Buck would, it's a different deal now, the cattle are small, and Uncle Buck legs, but he'd have to go to flanking because you ain't gonna win nothing if you're not flanking now, really.
Right.
But I'd say that they'd be pretty tough, but I think Daddy'd be right there with them.
Oh yeah, the good ones back then would have learned how to do it now. No doubt.
Yeah,
No doubt.
Yeah.
What's the first
everybody
rodeo?
said, Do I?
I apologize, sir. You can go on.
Go on. Go
That's
ahead.
all right. Everybody said that he should have been a world champion. He's just unlucky.
Yeah.
And he does some stupid things. Don't get me wrong, like everybody. He wins 7,000 or 8,000 to building rodeos when he's in the league. The 52 when he won second. Don won it. Well, his horse set up had a really good horse. Well, this one calf he sets up, he's mad. But Buff Baffett won't know if it's selling. And Daddy turned around and sold him for $1,500. So that was the stupidest thing he ever said he ever done. Sell that horse. Because he was a whale of a horse. He was a star in Bert. And he was about 5 or 6. Well, I tell you, you remember Joe Madden?
Yeah.
Okay, Joe Madden rode that horse at Cheyenne one year. He couldn't get nobody to ride a stripping horse. He said, "Can I leg him down like a calf horse or rope him?" They said, "Yeah, you can do whatever you want to do." They just thought, "Yeah, right." Yeah. He goes and ropes his steer, ripped him over back, and the steer's starting to get up, and he just grabbed his leg and pushed him back over. He went third round.
Yeah.
Well, they changed the rule, and before the second roll round started, you had to have a trip.
Yeah.
So he stopped that pretty quick. So that's how good a horse he was,
Right.
And this was years later. I mean, but that was one thing kept Dave from winning, and he should have rode old Baldy because my uncle said that man, he said that. He said everybody could ride him and win on him, but he said he didn't. Nobody rode him like Jess. And, that comes along once in a great while.
Well, a lot of good horses came off that Cross J Ranch, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Baldy was out of, I think, something T. I can't remember what I used to read them books all the time. I remember all that stuff. But he was out of Babe Dawson, which was was the mother of Oklahoma Star Jr. And then this other horse, something T. And Mr. Dawson, they said had some real good horses too. Well, they had Babe Dawson, so he had a pretty good mare.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had a lot of good horses, and Mason had Oklahoma Star, and he'd go around buying all the Oklahoma Star fillies that was say yearlings, and he'd give him $50. I tell you, Clint McSpadden's dad had an Oklahoma Star mare, and he went and bred her star. Well, he got a filly coat. Mason come by and he said, "You want to sell that filly?" He said, "Yeah, I'd sell her." So he said, "Well, I'll give you $50 for her." He said, "Well, I'm going to sell her to you." I said, "Well, what's the mare out of?" Said Oklahoma Star. He said, "Well, he's an inbred." He said, "I don't know if he's inbred, outbred, or what, but he said that's what she is. If you want her, okay. If you don't." Well, Mason buys her. So she's a double-bred star. And he's got Beggar Boy there. And he breeds her to Beggar Boy. And he gives the colt away. And Lucian Tiger, I believe it was Lucian Tiger, won the Little Paw that year. And they give that colt away. And Clem, the last year I was at Claremore, I was judging it. And he always wanted to know whatever happened to that horse. Well, I found out. I said, "Well, my dad had him forever." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "He was about a Beggar Boy, the double-bred star mare, and give her the Lucian Tiger, won the Little Paw Rodeo." And I said, "Daddy had him, and he's one-eyed." And Sam ran him down for him to train him. And Daddy said, well, what do you want to do with him? Sam said, I don't care what you do. And he said, I'm scared of ever having that so-and-so trail. Daddy said, well, tell me about him. So anyway, I don't know what happened to his one eye, but he won Omaha and Chicago 1 year on him. And they won everywhere on him. He's a whale of a horse. And Mel Potter ended up with him. When he was just getting started, he said, I didn't know nothing, but he said, that horse learned me more in 1 year than I did. He said, I mean, he just score and run, stop, and get back. And he had a bad foot, hurt in the trailer, not in the trailer, I guess. And I had to put him down. He's about 20, something like that. But he's a whale of a horse, too, you know. So...
Yeah,
a
lot of horses come off that ranch. Good horses.
Yeah. They said Beggar Boy and Star and Cross was Oklahoma Star and Burt. And that's what Daddy rode pretty well all the time.
Yeah.
But they were good ones. Well, you know, I'm sure your grandpa, I don't ever remember. I was too young to remember what they rode. But I do remember when he come up with a black horse. He won the world.
Yeah. He had a couple good, 2 or 3 good calf horses come off that ranch, and I'm not sure if they were off that one that Ben Johnson rode up there at Pendleton when he won second. That was Jake, and he was across.
Oh yeah, I remember. I don't remember the horse, but I remember talking about Jake. You know.
Yeah. That was a Beggar Boy horse. Or at least across J. I'm not sure if he's Beggar Boy or Oklahoma Star, to be honest with you. But he came off the Cross J Ranch. I know that.
Well, I tell you, you know, Kelly Corbin's dad said, Kelly told me, he said, my dad said he didn't rope all that great, but said he really liked the Beggar Boy horses.
Yeah.
So it was kind of whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
But Ike Rood had a steer horse called Buster, was out of Beggar Boy and out of, I guess, a Star bred mare. I don't know. They roped steers, they roped calves, and they team ropes on him.
Yeah.
I said, he said he was a good horse. He said he might be the best horse he ever had besides old Baldy. Boys roping calves. But
what kind of guy was Ike Rood to be around?
I just remember him. I was just little. But I'll never forget, he come to my Uncle Buck and his house. And we was all, Daddy was there, and I was with Daddy, of course. I was running around a little bit. So we're sitting there in the chair. He's sitting in the dining chair at the dining table. And my aunt had to leave the room. She about fell out laughing. She got to looking at Ike. You know, Ike wasn't very tall. And Ike was sitting in this chair. He had his leg crossed, and he was sitting there rocking his leg back and forth. He wasn't even touching the floor. So I said, Dad, how the hell did Ike get on a horse and get off? He said, well, he can do it. But he was a pistol.
You know, he rode, speaking of that, he rode my grandfather's bay horse, steer horse named Rock, to when he won the championship in 1953. And he was the oldest guy to ever win in the world and still holds that record. I think he's 59. But old Rock, he couldn't get off of him, and he'd stop him, dragging a steer. He'd stop him and get off, and then that Rock would pick the steer up and just go on and bring him to him. And Jim said it used to make me cringe seeing him pull him up, but he'd go as soon as he got on the ground. Why, old Rock could go on with that steer then and drag him right to him, and he won the world in 1953.
I didn't remember. I didn't know what he rode. I knew he come by. He saw Daddy right at Ada, out be west of town where they made a circle. You know, where the highways all come together and went to Stroud and Falls Valley and what. Well, Ike was coming around there and he saw Daddy, and Daddy was going down to get a horse shot. And Ike waved Daddy down, and he got out and he talked to him. He said, He says, Ike, what in the world are you doing? He said, well, I'm going over here for Everett and them to look at old Terrapin. I'm going to sell him. I don't have no money. And I want to go to Cheyenne. And Daddy said, well, what do you need? He said, well, I need these fees to go to Cheyenne and what? But he said, maybe I'll sell this horse. But he sold old Terrapin and went to Cheyenne. And I think he won a little money. But I remember the last time I remember seeing Ike was at Cheyenne. And I was sleeping in the car. I don't know what. I checked out of the room and ended up making the finals. So I said, well, hell, I was asleep in the car. And I'm about 6 o'clock in the morning, the sun's shining, and I hear it go, whoop, 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 your rope swinging. And then it go crack, pop, zip. I said, what in the world is that? So I listened to it a little bit. I get up, and it's Ike roping a dummy out there at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So I get up, and I said, well, hell, I might as well get up. So I go by, walking by there, and I said, I don't think I ever seen Ike since then before. I could have, but I don't remember it. And I said, Ike, stuck my head on. I said, you probably don't remember me. I was pretty small. I said, Bobby Goodspeed. He said, Bobby, hot speed. I just tied a calf in 11.9. Fastest calf ever been tied there. I said, Goodspeed. He said, yeah, I know, but you're a hot speed right now. He's just something else, you know. But I'll never forget. He just roped that dummy, go, poof, 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 crack. He didn't miss him either.
No,
6 o'clock in the morning.
He loved the rope.
Oh, he was something else. And him and Uncle Buck went to took Baldy and whatever the steer horse that Ike had. They go to Sheridan, about 4 rodeos out west, and they come back, and they didn't do nothing. Neither one of them won nothing. And my aunt said, "Well, what's wrong? How come you didn't win nothing?" I said, "I guess we didn't rope good enough." Well, Uncle Buck and Daddy called Ike, or got a hold of him some way, and asked him about riding old ballies or roping them somewhere there in Oklahoma. And he said, yeah, you can ride him. So they go to the rodeo and they come back and said, well, what'd y'all do? I said, we didn't do nothing. Well, who won the roping? I said, well, Jess won it. I said, what was he riding? Ike said, he's riding no baldy. She said, well, what'd you do that for, Ike? He said, I guess I want him to win it. You know how he come up with stuff.
Right.
But he always had an answer. But he was a pistol. Him and Dad was big friends. And Daddy and Everett, of course, Dick and all of them was good friends. And he rode old Peanuts a lot. In a trip, and he would ever say, Jess, you going to rope so-and-so? I don't guess I've been roping none. He said, I'll even mount you for half. Daddy said, well, I guess I'll rope. Well, Daddy was everywhere he was, every time he was entering. I mean, Daddy could rope steers, but he just didn't really care about it like he did calf roping.
Yeah.
Now, Uncle Buck, he loved steer roping.
Right.
And I asked Everett one time, I said, how good did Uncle Buck rope steers? He said, well, I'll tell you. He said, your uncle roped solid as anybody roping steers. Said he wasn't real fast, wasn't real slow, but he just beat 17, 18, 19, 20. He said, I roped him 6 times in match and I couldn't beat him. So he roped pretty damn solid, you know.
Yeah. He got hurt real bad in a match against Ike Rood.
He sure did.
In the 50s.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Yeah, they didn't think he was going to live for about a year.
Yeah.
It was really touch and go.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I'm trying to think who. I know Uncle Buck was roping, and I can't remember who took Uncle Buck's place at the finish of the match. Just when they finished the roping.
Right.
But they said it was windy. Ooh, it said it was windy. It said Uncle Buck runs up there, and he looks him over, and he ropes him. They said when he pulled the slack, said he kept tracking. They said, what was he doing? And what it is, that wind, when he pulled that slack down, that trip, that wind blew that rope underneath that horse's front legs. And Uncle Buck just kept riding him along, hoping he'd get out of it. Well, a little bit of steer went to the right, and the horse went to the left. It was a hell of a wreck. And the horse rolled over a couple of times, and Uncle Buck was on his hands and knees fixing to get up, I guess, to see where he's at. And the horse come over the saddle, hit him right in the head. Well, it hadn't killed him,
Yeah.
But he survived. But he never, it was 2 or 3 years before he was really right. And he's getting aged in that he wrote one time I saw him at McAllister. And he sold, I believe a horse called him Rowdy. They sold him to Ace Hours.
Yep.
That was the last time Uncle Buck ever wrote.
Well, Bobby, you roped calves and followed your dad's footsteps, and you actually roped in the first national finals.
Right. Yeah.
How old were you that year?
I just turned 20.
Yeah.
I got married when I was 19 in October. Well, I had the finals in Christmas, first or January, Christmas, something like that. And I just turned 20. And the next year, So me and Billy Hale was probably the youngest to be there. He was in a bulldog and I was in the roping.
Yeah.
But they were big calves.
I was going to ask you about the calves. We talked to Olin Young, and he said they were big.
They were big. Yeah, Olin had a whale of a horse called Silky.
Right.
And he won it 2 or 3 times on him. And then he won it 4 times.
Right.
Nobody's ever won the finals so many times as Olin. Olin rode solid as he can be.
Oh, yeah. I always thought he's the best roper I ever saw. All around,
Yeah, till Phil Lyons come along.
Right.
When I'm concerned, Phil Lyons the greatest cowboy that ever come along. Rope calves.
Yeah, and ride bulls on top of everything else.
And he was like
world champion steer roper too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He said they was talking. I forget what the hell. I can't remember the damn name of this guy. Went all around 6 times. Not Ty.
Tom Ferguson.
But no.
Ty Murray.
The other road. No.
Oh, Larry Mahan.
Larry Mahan. He was a good dude. And he was sitting there talking about all around this and that. And he said, I'm going to tell y'all something right now. He said, right there when they was interviewing, he said, the greatest all-around cowboy has ever been and ever will be is Phil Lyons. Said he rode bulls, he rode barebacks, broncs, and that was all. And then he rode bulls and rope calves and trip steers. And said he won the world of tripping, calf roping. And he broke 1 year at the finals, won the calf roping, walked down to the other end, gets on his bull, and wins bull riding. So he was a hell of a hand.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that.
Right, yeah.
Ace Berry, he was a pretty good
And it was an accident. He did it twice,
Yeah.
And he said, they asked him why he quit roping steers. He said, well, it's not steer roping no more. He said, it's just jump out there and turn back and you jump off. And said, it's not no horsemanship, no nothing. Ever what it was. That's the reason he quit roping steers.
What are your memories of that first national final, Bobby? That was just a who's who of calf ropers with Jim Bob Altizer and Olin Young and Sonny Davis and Tom Neesmith, Dean Oliver, Dale Smith. I mean, that has to be pretty sobering to go up against those guys when you just turned 20 years old.
Oh, yeah. Well, I weighed 55 pounds. And the kids weighed 300 or more.
Wow.
And I said, Jim, hey, what am I going to do? Well, I knew I had to leg them. But anyway, they had 3 sets of calves. And Sonny Davis and Jim Ball told Lanham Riley, he supposedly furnished the cattle in, that they wasn't going to rope that big set. Said, we'll rope the other 2, but we're not roping them. Said, we won't have no calf roping. So they roped 2 sets. And I won a second on 2 of them. And Bill Potter, he won a round or something. He said, the next round, he said, I got knocked down, run over, and he said, but it was hell after that. But, yeah, it wasn't a real good rope. And Sonny Davis made a hell of a run. He made 2 loops and 14-something.
Yeah, and they brag about when they do one 18 out there at the final, now they make a big deal out of it in 2 loops.
Oh, yeah. You know, and I had to laugh. I said, I remember when Daddy and I was going to Joplin, Missouri, and I was going on St. Louis for some reason, and I was living there then. But Vernon Kearns had come by and picked Daddy up, and he was going to ride. He said, I'll enter and mount you if you'll just roll. Well, we went Joplin, Missouri, and Wichita, Kansas. And Daddy just had all his teeth pulled. He was about 41 or something. And I said, Daddy, how you gonna put that string in your bent mouth? He said, well, I don't know where else to put it. I said, well, you can put it in your belt. He said, I ain't gonna do that. So he would take and stick that string in his mouth, get wet how he wanted it, and take his tongue and hold that string in his mouth. And he tied one calf and 14 2 loops.
Really?
And that was way back then.
Yeah, that'd been unheard of back then.
Yeah. It was a crazy thing. Daddy said one time at Denver, he said, I don't know why I done it. So I had that second rope on. Said I had a long time to win the roping. And he said he was riding a horse called Stormy, which by bird and out of Star Mare. And he said, I don't know why. I nodded my head. And I stowed the loop down and left and went to grab the second loop, went roping, and won the roping. He said, the only thing I could think of was I kept thinking about that second loop while I got it. And I threw the loop, I just dropped it right there in the box and left and got the second loop, went roping, tied him 12 something, and won the roping.
I'll be darned.
You know, he'd tell different little deals that you remember, you know.
Right.
That was kind of crazy. But,
What made Dean Oliver so tough, Bobby?
Well, Dean had a hell of a horse called Mickey. And I'm trying to think. Oh, Jack Saunders, Ellen Sykes' son-in-law. He wrote stuff. He wrote good, but he didn't go a whole lot. He had a job. He might have been a teacher. But he wrote old Mickey for after he got him going good and everything. He hauled him another year to the rodeos. And I think he placed one time on him. But they said Jack would always run right a straddle, never take a bad throw, set everything up a rope, and just rode the horse. And Mickey was automatic, and Dean got him. And Dean would just run up. He'd go 1, 2, 3, and then rope. But now when Dean waved the slack, and went down to plate one. There wasn't no mistakes. He was solid as you could get, and he was fast.
He's really a good athlete, wasn't he?
Oh, he's an athlete. There ain't no telling what he could do about anything he wanted to do.
Yeah.
But he just didn't mess up. I never did see him miss a. I remember when he was 50 years old at the finals, and he was riding the wrong horse, and I didn't think he was worth a damn. I don't know how he got there, but he made it. And his hand slipped off his flank. That's the first time I ever seen anything go wrong. Now, I didn't see him all year.
Right.
But I never did see him miss flank one. I never did see him miss string one. He never was. He's always just big raps, throw his hands up there, win first.
Yeah.
He's bad. He was unreal.
I guess he still holds the record for the most world championships, doesn't he? Like 8 world championships?
Yeah. Yeah, they won. Yeah, they won 2 or 3 all-arounds.
Don't I know it?
But Dean was in the lead one year. He was just getting in it to kind of win all around, He wanted to win like 2,000 or so he'd have enough money. I don't know just how they done it then. But anyway, I didn't know it, but Dean, Bill Potter was telling me that Leo Camarillo was in the truck, and they come by there, and there's all time going on. And he said, Dean Oliver, he ain't no all-around champion. He said, well, hell, what are you talking about? He said, why? He said, he just got the bull on a little bit. He said, I'm going to tell you what. He puts Leo on the phone. He calls Dean. And he said, I got a man here who wants to ask you something. He said, I forget what it was. Dean went back and forth to Leo anyway. But he said, you tell that little Mexican so-and-so that Everett Bulldog all year long was in the lead till over the middle of the season, and I was afraid I was going to make the finals. And he said, I quit bulldogging, and I was in the lead for the world. And he was. And he ended up making it anyway, the last hole. Well, he had the bulldog, but he didn't want a bulldog because he's afraid he'd get hurt at the finals roping calves.
Right.
I mean, he was an athlete. He was a hell of a hand. But if he went on to get bulldogging, I guess he'd won the world of bulldogging.
Right.
But anyway, but he won all around 2 or 3 times, and he won the calf roping 8 times. And Toots and Clyde Burke won it 7 times.
Yeah.
Or I say, I don't know about Clyde now. Clyde, but I think Clyde and Toots were tied at 4 apiece when Clyde got killed.
Right.
And, so Toots might not have won it 7 times. Clyde might have won it 5 or 6. You never know.
Right. We'll never know.
Yeah.
How did you guys used to enter rodeos back then? There's a central Procom central entry office now where you call and enter rodeos, and then you call back and see when you're up. How did back in the day, the 50s, did you enter rodeos?
Well, you entered. You just called. They had a secretary, a number. They'd have one set up where you call, and it might be busy all day long, and it might, the phone might not be working. And I called like Jackson, Mississippi one time. I tried all day long and couldn't get nobody. Hell, it wasn't working. And Dottie got a hold of Mildred Ferris. I believe it was after book closing on. She said, well, don't worry about it, Dottie. She said, we're taking all interest. And the phone was out of order. Said, couldn't nobody get entered. So that's how I got entered. But it was all day long. And there'd be some guys like Casey Cox. He would sit there and he had this dial tone, and he'd ring that phone number and it'd be busy. And he'd just hang it up, dial it again. He'd do that all day long until he got them. It was pretty bad. Pretty bad. And what was really bad is when you'd be at a rodeo on a payphone and trying to get hold of that number, and you'd be busy, and you'd have to dial it again and put your money back in the payphone. It wasn't very much fun, but finally, if you knew where you was going, the secretary would be there at that rodeo, and they was going that next one. Well, you just go ahead and enter. Like if I was going to Joplin, up in Wisconsin, Bob Barnes and Don Neal and them would be there. I'd just go ahead and enter. A lot of guys did. They'd go ahead and put us down. But it's so hard to get through.
Were you able to ever go enter Madison Square Garden in your career?
Oh, yeah. That's the last rodeo I went to. The greatest rodeo, yes, that I ever been to.
Can you tell us what it's like out there a little bit?
Do I?
Tell us what it was like out there a little bit, would you?
Well, I went with Vernon Kearns, and he said, Bobby, if you'll go, and that's the first year that they had the finals. Well, I was making the finals, and I needed to go. So I said, yeah, I'm going to go. He said, I'll enter, if you'll enter, you go ahead and go with me and split expenses. I'll mount you on the horse in one condition. I said, what's that? And I said, oh, this will be good. He said, you got to get up every morning and ride him and exercise him. I said, what time is that? He said, I got to be there at 7 o'clock. I said, gee, my knee, Carter. I said, I can't get up 7 o'clock every morning for 30 days. I said, it'll kill me. Of course, I never did get up very damn early, but I was spoiled. Daddy be gone, mother, of course, it's the house, and hell, but nothing to do. And hell, I love to sleep at 12 o'clock.
But anyway, I said, early rodeo cowboys, they got to rest.
Yeah.
Do what?
I said, ranching cowboys, they got to get up early, but us rodeo cowboys got to rest.
No, well, I'm kind of like what guy said one time. He said, "Are you a cowboy?" He said, "No, ma'am." He said, "I see you got that hat on." He said, "I found this hat." But he said, "A cowboy gets up every morning and goes to work on the ranch, and they work all day until dark. And maybe if they're not doing something, they come in when it's done." So no, I'm not a cowboy. I'm just a rodeo cowboy. But yeah, I know my dad said when he was home with depression, he said we didn't have nothing to eat, we didn't have enough money, but he said we always had plenty to eat. And he said my uncle went and borrowed his stepdad. They was wanting to go to a couple of rodeos, and Uncle Buck said, "Dad, yes, won't you go see him? Dad will loan some money." He said, "He'll loan it to us, but he won't loan it to me." And he said, "Well, I don't know." So anyway, he goes and asks his stepdad if he can get $40 from him, and he goes to the bank and mortgages the place for $40. For Daddy and Uncle Buck go to the rodeo, and they win both rodeos. Daddy said, "I come home, paid him, never borrowed another penny." And he said, "It cost me a lot of money," but he said, "When you're in a depression and don't have no money, you got something to eat, but you ain't got no money to go nowhere to do nothing." He said, "You took care of that money." He said, "You did go borrowed a lot of money and this and that." But, yeah, but he said, his stepdad said, "Well, Jess said, well, if you don't win nothing," he said, "I'll pay you back." But he said, "I'm going to win something." He said, "What if you don't?" He said, "I'll pay you back, but I'm going to win something." And they went up there and won both rodeos. So it was unreal how tough they had it. But he said, I remember he told somebody, he said, I always said that if I had a boy that was and we had a place, whatever, he said, he wouldn't go with the fields and work. He said, now he might learn to work and do different things. But he said, I never wanted to go work. He said, 4 o'clock every morning, going down there and chopping cotton and corn and all that. He said, I didn't want him to have to work like that. So I didn't. So he was good to me, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. 1970.
But I remember old Jim, your grandpa.
Yeah.
Now, is your dad Joe?
No, my dad's Jim Jr. He was a little older.
Oh, Jim Jr. Yeah. Now, I never even remember Jim Jr. I don't guess that much.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I remember Joe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But now, did Jim go that much?
Yeah, he 30s and 40s, late 30s and 40s, he made most of the calf ropings. He won Calgary and places like that, you know. But then in the late 40s, he started concentrating on the steers and was mostly a steer roper through the 50s. But
at 50s, I didn't graduate from high school to 56, so
yeah.
That's the reason I didn't remember Jim.
Yeah.
I remember talking about, you said it too, Jim Jr.
Uh-huh.
But Joe was a lot younger than him.
Yeah, Joe was 4 years younger than my dad.
Yeah, but I remember Joe.
Yeah.
Joe was a hell of a roper.
Yeah.
But I didn't see him, of course I didn't know nothing then.
Right.
But about like rock and that was way before my time.
Right.
But
right. Well, you won the finals.
Did he have a horse?
Go ahead.
I was starting to say he didn't have a horse, but he rode a horse. They called him Posey. He belonged to Hugh Posey's dad.
I don't remember him riding him. He could have. He was a second cousin to Hugh Posey. Jim was Hugh Posey Jr. And
right.
And so he could have rode Posey some. He sure could have.
Yeah, I remember Daddy talking about this Posey horse. He said he was a good little horse. He couldn't really run, but said he'd score. Just stand there, you can hang his head over the damn barrier and he never moved.
Yeah.
But he said until you left.
Yeah.
What did all the Cowboys think about when you heard about the first NFR? How did they explain that to all the Cowboys that were entering all year trying to make that first NFR?
Well, I think there's a lot of people that some was trying to go more, but I don't think he really changed that much going to them. You had to live, and rodeo wasn't all that prosperous.
Was everybody excited to try to qualify for that first NFR, or?
Well,
I don't know.
I don't
be a fly by night deal. What was the thought around all the Cowboys right around that time?
Well, they really didn't know what it was going to amount to or nothing, and everybody just kept rodeo and just going, just doing that and doing that. And I remember, he's a bulldog that lived down there. Great big guy. Hell of a good guy. He lived there at Eufaula.
Jim Painter?
Not Painter. He'd run with him. Nathan Haley. Nathan would come in and said, I bulldog once in a while. And Nathan come take care of me, Well, Nathan, if we was at the rodeo, Nathan take care of me regardless because he was a big, tough dude and a hell of a nice guy. But there wasn't nobody going. He went to the bar. I said, I don't want to go to the bar. He said, I'll take care of you. Ain't nobody going to bother you. And I said, okay. Well, nobody bothered me, but I always had a lot of fun. I wasn't no troublemaker, that's for sure. But old Nathan, he was a good guy. And he'd say, hey, little buddy, said, where you sitting in the standings? And all year long, he'd always say, where you sitting in the standings? And I said, well, I don't know just where at, maybe 9th or 10th. Because he said, you keep going, you make them. And he was the only one that really talked a whole lot about finals, about me making them. But nobody really, they just wasn't crazy about it. They wasn't sure.
Did you go to the finals when they had it in Los Angeles?
Oh, yeah. I said, I drive all the way to L.A., me and my wife. Well, the reason we went through the first time, we had a baby boy, Bobby Jr., and my uncle, and I had aunts and uncles and cousins all lived at El Monte, which is right there, branch of L.A., and I said, well, we're going to go out there. I told Roddy, I said, we're going out there. And I said, we'll take little Bobby. And I said, Carl Waller, get to see him, you know. And, gee, a ram paid $250. Well, hell, they ain't no telling what it cost to go out there, you know, back then. But, yeah, we went to L.A. 2 years in a row. I don't know if I went third year, maybe 2 years, but it was a flop. I mean, Cowboys were good, don't get me wrong, but
where'd they move that finals after that? Is that when it went to Oklahoma City?
Oklahoma City.
Was it a different deal when it finally got to Oklahoma City?
Yeah, it took about 2 or 3 years. And they can say all they want, but the man running it was Clem McSpadden. And Clem McSpadden knew everybody in the country. And he knew who can do what. And, well, you know, really, truly, you got to have a man that, if he's going to run something, he's got to go get people behind him to work with him, to get them to do something. But Clem knew everybody to get a hold of him. I mean, hell, he's a big man. And he made the finals in Oklahoma City. About the third year, it started filling up. And after that, it was full every time. So it left.
What would everybody do after the rodeo in Oklahoma City? Now they go to the casinos and the buckle presentations and concerts.
They got so damn much. They got so much stuff out there. I said, you better have a pocket full of money. If you go to, you know, like you said, you know, they got the buckle ceremonies and all. We used to go sign autographs if we went around. Whoever went around would go in the front of the Coliseum and the people all be coming out and they come by and they get your autograph and stuff like that. But not really, nothing. Now, 1 year, my wife, we never did parties, nothing like that. But me and John W. Jones, Ronnie Sewell, and John W.'s wife, and Ronnie's, we all went and danced a little bit, went and had a few drinks. And that's the only time Dottie and I ever went anywhere. But we just didn't party, you know. And there's always somebody partying, you know, raising cane, you know how it was. But it was pretty laid back compared to what it is now. You got, huh?
I said you won it in 1975. What do you remember about that?
Oh, well, I just kept roping. And went to my last calf, I guess. I had a calf tied in 14 once and 16 twice. Kind of a tall, rangy brimmer. And I never remember. I will forget Ronnie Sewell. I said, "Well, Ronnie," he said, "Of course, Ronnie and I grew up together, Barry, and Ronnie was the year before, and Barry was the year before that, or something like that. I don't know." He said, "I said, I don't know if I can play this cat or not." I said, "He's tall and long-legged." I said, "I don't know. I guess I've got to go legging." He said, "Bobby," he said, "your little horse is working good rope." And he said, "The only time he didn't get one flank was because you didn't block him off." He said, if you leg him and you walk him a couple of 3 jumps," and I was just like 2 seconds to the lead. It's close. He said, "If you walk him 2 or 3 steps like that," he said, "it's going to cost you." He said, "I just block off and go ahead and flank him." And I did. And I won it. I was 11 something. And Terry Davis missed his. And Ernie, I was 2 or 3 seconds ahead of Ernie. Ernie wrote was 13 or 14. So it worked out. But one year I had, with my last calf, I was riding Zane Tibbs' gray mare. And hell, I've never even dreamed about breaking it. But buddy, she left the right mare left there. Ooh. And I rope this calf. I get down, and he runs around me, and I just kind of go with him. I wasn't in no hurry because I was way in the lead. And I flanked him, and I strung him, and I crossed him, and I put it right and pulled it tight, and then got another pull it tight, throwed up my hands 13-8, and got beat 5-10. I was sick.
Yeah.
Because, I've been there quite a few times, and it seemed like every time something happened. And then one year that Roy Cooper won the Average. And I had to went to our last one, and they was giving it on points, for about 3 years there. And Roy says, "I don't think there's nobody left to get me, are they? If I win the time down, win roping." And I didn't figure it out. And I had to win second or third, or split second, third in the round. And Roy's on the win. He wins Average, and I win second. Because we was way out of the lead. And I said, "How about me?" He said, "What about you?" He always called me Gramps, I said, "Well, if I win second or third, and you win the Average, and I win second Average, you don't place." I said, "I'll beat you 10 a second, or a point." He said, "Damn you, Gramps." And he turned around and walked off. Well, it turned around, he won it, and I won second. And that's the closest I ever had a chance of winning the world, But it wasn't really winning in the world. You just give it on points there.
Why did they do that those couple of years? Did they lose track of the money, or?
I don't know why they done that. They just
Did they not want to keep track of the money, maybe?
They wanted to keep, they had to keep track because everybody get there to the finals. But I think they want to make it, everybody in a grain of sand, knew that everybody had a chance. And it is a good deal.
Well, they've done it now with that money, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Except back then, you didn't get to take anything, with you.
It started over.
Yeah, it started over. So it really wasn't hardly fair.
It was in the 70s.
Right.
I think Chris Ledoux won his world championship that way.
Yeah. I'll tell you who, the guy from Canada, what the hell, Gladstone, he won it the first year. And then the next year, Dave Brock won it. Well, the next year, I missed my Capital Road, won it anyway. But after that, they quit.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, it's good watching. I mean, you come down to every event, everybody be watching every event because it's right there. Different ones had a chance to win it, but
when old Roy
really
came
and truly,
on, I'm sorry. Sir.
well, Roy was winning the one in the world a few times.
Did he? Did he just come on like no one saw him coming, and then he just took over everything?
Well, yeah, really. Dean was getting old, and McLaughlin was done, and there wasn't nobody around left to really, and nobody really. They just figured, well, Roy probably win it, and you had to go hard as you could possibly go and spend all your money for what, just to win a championship. It ain't gonna pay you nothing, give you a buckle, that prestige. That's about it. You got to eat, and that's what everybody done back then. Now Dean, when he come along, he just took over. He won one world. Then he waited a little while, and then he went. It just seemed like he just couldn't beat Dean. And then here come Roy. But it changed. It changed a whole lot. But
what do you think about it now, Bobby?
It's a joke. I mean, everybody got to go. You got to go, little cattle. You got to run your wheels on. I tell you what, how many people have got money? Where do they go? Compared, used to when you won some money, you took care of it, and you could go another week or two, or might go a month. But heck, the day money now, the fees are high, the gas is high, everything's high. Well, heck, and I know Whitfield said one time, I got to get a sponsor. He said, because I ain't going to be able to go next year if I don't get a sponsor. Well, he done the world 2 or 3 times. I said, what the hell's wrong with that guy? I said, he don't know how to rodeo. When they said, well, when you go to steakhouses every night by spending $100 or so on each, and where he's going, I said, they don't keep no money. I said, well, I can understand that. I said, he better decide that he won't, instead of going to spend $100 a night for each, he might go spend 20 or 30 or a little less. I said, I knew what my budget was. I said, I'd go eat a hamburger or whatever, or chicken fried steak, but I didn't order a T-bone steak. But I said I knew what I could do and what I couldn't do and what I had to do. But they was winning the world. But I know some guys that won the world. The next year at Denver, they were sitting on the curb trying to decide whether they're going to call their brother-in-law to borrow the money to enter Fort Worth. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Well, that's the life of a rodeo cowboy, if that's what you want to do for a living, especially us.
Well, yeah, you take. Well, hell, I tell you, I don't know. I never talked to him about it, but we was pretty good friends, and Daddy was good friends. But Don, they said at the end of the year we need to win the world. He'd have to borrow the money to go to Fort Worth dinner. And I talked to different ones, and they said when Don started making all his money when he moved to Colorado, out there in Colorado, in that Western store, that's when he went to making all his money. So he won the world 5 times. He had to borrow money to enter the next year. That is not smart rodeoing. I don't care what they say. But
Jimbo.
some people just got, huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done, sir.
No, that's all right.
You know, I got all the way to Pendleton one time, entered that booger, and I got to looking around. I didn't have but about $20 in my pocket after before the first round started. And I didn't even pay my fees from the week before, Jimbo. And I looked around and won the first round over there. And I was waiting around on that rodeo secretary because I had to go get that check from the first round, go to the bank over there in Pendleton so I could cash it and wire the money back to the PRCA from the week before and maybe have enough money to eat on or something.
Yeah.
And she jacked around all dang day till I was late getting my fees in, had to pay the fines from the week before. But luckily I won that go round. I thought I'd never see another poor day after that, Jimbo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. I never did go to Pendleton. My uncle went a few times. He said, I'll tell you, it's a different deal. He said, they'll be bringing him up that damn ramp. And they said, here he comes. Get ready. Then they'll say, whoa, wait a minute, he turned back. He said, you're sitting there all nervous and tense and damn. He said, it's nerve-wracking.
I tell you what, you don't realize when they say he's out, that means they turned him out of the back pins and they say he's halfway and there's someone driving him on a horse with a little buggy whip. And he's halfway to you. And when they say he's here, Jimbo, he's right beside you. And if you blink, that sucker's gone all the way. So as soon as they say he's here, if you've thought about anything, you're done late. And heck, the box is like 100 foot long or something. However long that track is. But
yeah, it's a whole different deal now. I'll tell you what, I never, people got hurt all the time out there. Horses got hurt or something.
Yeah.
On that grass, And you remember the picture of Harley May?
Yeah.
He's sitting in the saddle.
Yeah.
He come off the horse.
Yeah. The saddle come from off the horse. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, just stripped it.
Yeah.
And they said, well, it bagged him up pretty good. I said, he didn't run as an accident or something, but stuff like that. Then there's one year that there's a boy that roped the calf, and the horse slipped, fell over sideways, and he breaks his leg. I can't remember that boy's name or nothing. But anyway, they take him to the hospital. Well, they was going up to see any different guys, and they said one day, about 2 or 3 days later, so I'm going up to see so-and-so. Said, well, you're too late.
Mike Booth.
Mike
Booth was his name. Team rope.
Was it? Yeah, he died right there in the hospital.
Broke his leg at Pendleton and died, Jimbo. Team roping.
Yeah. I said, I wouldn't go out there and ask anybody to ride their horse and take a chance of crippling the horse or crippling me, especially if I got a horse. I said, now I got a good horse, and the grass don't bother him really that much. Because if he drops that foot in the ground, that front end, and go out and brace, he ain't going to slide. Because I rode him back here on grass. It didn't bother him. But I'm not going to go out there and leave my horse at home and go out there and ask somebody to ride their horse and take a chance of getting him crippled. I just would never go. And I said, it's a damn boy anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of guys up there, they take a couple nails out of each shoe and they put an ice spike in there. And then some guys, they went on the new deal where horses, they run around out in the pasture without shoes on, don't seem to slip, so they're all taking their shoes off now and not putting the ice spikes in. So, a few different ways they're doing it out there now. Do you know old Harold Bumgardner, Jimbo?
Do what?
You know Harold Bumgardner?
Yeah.
From Wyoming? One time I saw him, he was taking horseshoe nails and throwing them up into the heel of his boot because he had a bad knee and he wanted to put some cleats on his boot.
Yeah, and I know some said that they take like a pop bottle lid on a Coke or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they put it on the heel and put it on one on each up on the other part of the shoe boot. Keep them from slipping.
Yep.
I said, I ain't gonna go through all that. I said, I'll stay here closer to the house.
Yeah.
Where they got dirt.
Yeah.
But Tom Perkins said one time they was bragging about Pendleton, how great it was, and all this and all that. Well, they advertise it. That they was on the rodeo every day, and they was interviewing Tom. Tom didn't care, and he said, "Well, what do you think about the Pendleton Round-Up rodeo?" He said, "Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's the most overrated rodeo in the world." But they shut him off. Anyway, I don't think they bring him back, but PRCA jumped him out. He said, "Well, how it is? You're at 1,500." He says, "It's on grass. You get killed anytime." And he said, "You're talking about how great it is? What the hell's so great about it?" Said, "They don't add up. There's more rodeos. There's some that add more money than this does." And he was right. But this was when Tom was winning all around,
Yeah, they've taken a major step up. And, honestly, they're really one of the only rodeos that I've been to in a long time that really cares about their heritage and where they came from and the early days before it all started.
Well, yeah, but really and truly, how many's left? Look at Cheyenne. It's not nothing what it was years ago when I first started going. Everybody wanted to go to Cheyenne.
Well, they all still want to go to Cheyenne.
But then they they give you forehead and all this crap and all that stuff. And let me ask you this: you see the saddles they give away at Cheyenne?
Yeah, I have one right back here. My dad won.
Yeah, no. This is way before. I'm talking about last few years.
This is 2011 one I have. Yes, sir.
All right, yeah. So that was a long time ago.
We also have a 1940 one back there too, from Buck.
Right.
Buck. What's his? The all around hand from Nowata.
Buck Rutherford.
Oh, Buck Rutherford.
We got his Cheyenne Frontier Day saddle in the back.
Right. Yeah. Well, he's a hell of a cowboy. But the saddles they give away now, hell, you wouldn't even want to ride them. It looked like. To me, it looks like all the white letters on it and all that, and the print is damn high. I said, "Hell, you can't tilt forward try to rope your saddle or hit you in the belly."
I've never kept a saddle I won. I've had to sell them all to enter other rodeos.
Yeah, well, that's true. I remember when I was in high school, they didn't give me much of saddles away, but anyway, I'll go to Ardmore one year and I win 3 saddles. One the calf roping, one all around, and one they get one for the most one in the calf roping, river roping, and called it double mugging that. Well, I won it. Well, I was a freshman in high school. I come home with 3 saddles. Well, I sold 1 or 2, And then I go back my senior year, and I win 2 more. But more the saddles. I never did keep those saddles I won. I'm like you. I'd rather have the money.
I bet you kept that average saddle you won, though, didn't you? At the NFR
they didn't give me a saddle to win an average. I don't look that's a buckle. You believe that shit?
Well, hell. First time my dad won Cheyenne, they didn't give a saddle away either.
Yeah.
Jim won all around.
Well, they didn't give one away the year I won it.
Yeah. Jim won the steer rope and second the calf rope in 49, and they didn't give a steer rope and saddle away. Won a real nice buckle, but they gave an all-around saddle away, and he sold it. He didn't even take it home. He took it to the saddle shop here in Puska and told them to sell it,
Really?
If it wasn't good enough to tie a steer in, he didn't have any use for it.
Right, yeah. Them cowboys, old cowboys back then, if they couldn't use them, they didn't want them.
No. I asked Richard. I already asked Dick Truitt's son Richard here a while back if he had any of them old saddles because Dick won Madison Square Garden stuff. He said they had 1 saddle. That's all they had.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll be damned.
Hey, I interrupted you a while ago. Let's go back to Madison Square Garden one more time. It was 30 days. You were having to get up 7 o'clock every morning, go exercise them horses. Where did y'all keep the horses in the middle of New York City?
Well, it's underneath below the arena part. It's like, it must have been 5 tiers high, 2 stories high. But at the bottom, they kept all the broncs, all the bulls, everything, in pens back there. And they kept all the people that had to ride in the grand entry. They had enough horses for everybody is up first during the first half of the rodeo. They had to ride the grand entry. You dang sure better be there. And you had to carry a flag.
What about
and then
the
crowd? Second half,
How big was the crowd there?
Packed. It didn't seat but 2,500, three tiers high. I mean, but it was low in that one section of that building. But when
half.
you know how it would pack every person. And when they have the grand entry, okay, when they all come out, well, Kramer, I believe it was Kramer, he had a real pretty light sandy colored kind of a dun horse, long mane and tail, silver saddle and all that. And he had his Western style pants and hat and all that. And when they'd come out and they'd introduce him, and he'd punch out the horse and he'd bow down on one front and he'd tip his hat, and them people would go crazy. I mean, they loved the rodeo. I mean, it was something. I've never seen a rodeo like it, and never have seen one since. But it was it was 2 a day and sometimes 3. And we stayed across the street. Well, hell, it wasn't wide as we took it was Main Street. But we across stayed in the motel there, hotel.
Bet some good card games got started over there at that hotel.
Oh, hell. Jimmy Whaley and Martin Walker, they had 2 rooms, and they gambled. One room they gambled in. He's done that for years.
Was that the Belvedere Hotel? Was it still there then?
Belvedere Hotel.
Wonder if it's still there.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
It was kind of, well, when Vernon and I drove in, and we had to go underneath the river. I mean, there's 4 lanes and there's cops and all of that. And when you come out to the other side, you kind of come up a ramp, and there'd be 2 or 3 cops there, and they'd be directing traffic to left, right, whatever. And if you got out of that lane, it didn't make no difference, but nobody held at you or nothing. If you changed lanes, they would call and report it to the cop waiting down there when you come out. And over Vernon Kern, I sit there and I couldn't keep, I just turned my head. And I was about to fall out. And Kern was, yes, sir, no, sir. And you talk about a butt chewing that. He got it now. He said, if I had time, I'd take you right to jail. But I don't have time. Where are you going? The garden? He said, yes, sir. He said, turn left here. You know where to go? Yes, sir. He said, go to the garden and don't change the lanes no more when you leave here. He said, yes, sir. It'll burn the car. He was a sport anyway. He's driving. He said, now, what can you say? He said, talk to you like a damn dog. But he said, they was right. I said, yeah, and if you said anything, we'd been in jail now, going to jail. But anyway, we dropped off. We pulled up in front by the Madison Square Garden. And Nick Panzella lived, kind of around there in New York or right there close. He's horseshoed bulldog. And he met us there. He was waiting on us. And we got everything out of the trailer, the horse and the saddles and the ropes and everything, buckets, everything. And got our clothes. And went across the hotel, took everything downstairs, and Nick gets in the car and takes the trailer and takes about 8-10 miles from where he lived. And that's where he kept us there. Because you didn't want to put it in a parking lot. Because you wouldn't have you might not have a motor or nothing left, no tires. And it sitting in that parking lot. And we was there afoot for 30 days. But you just walk across the street, go into the rodeo, walk across the street, and the first door to the left was a Belvedere. It was a big bar. And it was booths all the way around it. And then the bar had stools to sit on and one. Well, everybody met right there. And you just walk in the hallway, turn your left, go in the bar, or you just go straight ahead, go to the room.
Casey Tibbs have his own booth over there at the Belvedere bar?
Do I?
Did Casey Tibbs have his own booth over there in the corner at the Belvedere bar?
I don't remember. Casey wasn't that big then. He's still going some, but he wasn't going like nothing like he was. And I don't think he had no booth in there. But everybody packed in there.
Just
had a good time.
He would to me.
Do what?
It just seems like he would to me for some
Yeah,
reason.
he ought to have a booth there.
Well, I don't know. See, Casey wasn't near the bronc rider that I remember seeing Casey at in Nebraska. What's the big rodeo they have in Nebraska? Anyway, Burwell. And he wasn't. I don't even know if he's entered or not. He could have been, but they would mount him on a horse exhibition. Good horse. I mean, but he'd mount one out exhibition for the people every performance of the rodeo. And I'll never forget it. The last day that he had this horse, and he took his hat off and he whooped him on both sides of the head and just fanned him. I mean, and people went crazy, But that's the last, and I saw him at Camden, Missouri. Every year they'd have Casey Tibbs, Rex Allen, Ken Roberts put that rodeo on. And I don't think Casey mounted anything out. He might have, but it was just big deal, have Casey Tibbs, Rex Allen, that like that. But I didn't really see Casey compete that much back. Of course, he was out of his time,
Right.
But now I'll tell you who I stayed with at the hotel across the street. I had two guys I stayed with, and they was sports. They said, "How the hell did your wife let you stay with them?" And I said, "I guess she just never thought nothing about it. Burn curves. He drank some, and he chased the women and what every morning the phone would ring. And I'd say, "Hello, is Vernon there?" Hell, it might be 6:00 in the morning. I said, "Who is this?" She said, "This is Faye." I said, "Just a minute." I said, "Vernon, Faye's on the phone." He said, "Oh, Popeye." I said, "That's just the way stuff went all the time." And Good Time Feddersen, he went and partied every night. And he'd go out, and I don't know how in the hell he could drink that much. He'd get up in the morning, and I'd get up, phone ring, I'd get up and go ride that horse. He'd say, "Bobby, you want to pull?" He'd go over and take a shot of whiskey. I said, "Good gosh, that'd kill me." And he'd just laugh, and he'd just go over like hell, he just got in, went to bed all night long, hadn't been nowhere. And that's just the way it was for 30 days. And I said, I had one hell of an experience with them two guys, but I loved them both. They were.
Are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh.
I can't even imagine that, Jimbo. That'd be something else, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, it was something else.
You know,
I guess
we ain't talked to very many guys that's been to the first NFR, been to the NFR in Los Angeles.
Right.
Been to.
Well, I guess Mel Potter and Dean Oliver and Olin Young and me and Good Time Pedersen. I don't know if anybody else left.
Yeah.
I asked Mel every once in a while, I said, you talked to Dean? Yeah, I talked to him about 2 weeks ago. And he's in his 90s. And I said, how's he doing? He said, well, he's walking a mile every day. Said he's in probably better shape than all of us. I said, hell, he always was. But, you know, he'd lead his horse every morning. He'd get up and lead him a mile. He'd jog with him a mile. And then he'd come back, saddle him up, ride him. He'd done that every day. But nobody was in shape like Dean Oliver was back in his prime.
Bobby, if you were making a Mount Rushmore of calf ropers, I'd need 4 names. Who would you put on your Mount Rushmore of calf ropers, the greatest calf ropers? You don't have to have seen them or be roped against them or anything.
They don't even have to be a world champion.
Yeah, they don't even have to be a world champion. But who do you think deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore of calf ropers?
Well, Dean Oliver's supposed to be there.
Right.
There's no doubt. And really, well, you got Dean and you got Clydeberg and you got Don and Toots. And really and truly, the people I talk to, like Bill Potter and Dean, he was around Daddy a lot. And I'd have to put my daddy there.
Yeah, that's all right.
Because my dad, everybody talked about what a great horseman he was, an athlete, and what a great roper he was. And he always had to, he said at one time, I had 6 horses that if they put one in the trailer and I'd never see him get the rodeo, I didn't care because I knew it'd work. And he had old Copper, which is Roy Steele, won the world on, and just different horses like that.
Right.
He had more damn good horses. He said, everybody said they got to have one good horse. He said, hell, I had a bunch of them. But, you know, he saw one guy, what the hell is the guy's name? Was out in California, all around Cowboy, team road champion. Dollarhide, was it Dollarhide? Don't sound like it.
I didn't think he was from California, but maybe he was.
I don't think it's Dollarhide. He was the team roper was his 18 or 19, won the world.
Oh, Jim Rodriguez.
Okay, his dad-in-law.
Gene Rambo.
And Daddy said, I had a horse that was starbred or whatever. And he said, I took him, I bought him. He was a hell of a horse. He said, I won 7 rodeos in a row on him. But I wanted to get some horses out in California. But he said, I never thought, got to thinking later, it's pretty damn dumb of me. But he said, it took people to drive all the way from California to Oklahoma to look at a horse and wasn't going to do it. He said, it's just too damn poor. But he sold that horse to Gene Rambo for $1,000. And Gene asked my Uncle Carl, Daddy's brother, and he roped in the Amateur Association out there, won a couple of times. There's a big deal out there then. And he said, Jess got anything, a good horse? He said, well, I don't know what he's got, but he'll tell you what he's got. He said, well, I can't give a whole lot of money, but he said, I'd like to get one good horse. And Daddy sells him that horse $1,000. He rode that horse till he got so old he couldn't use him no more. He rode Kez and then he healed on him forever. But Daddy just said, I done some goofy things.
Well,
he said, hell.
That was a pretty good race.
Well, I'd have to put Toots there. Toots and them won it back then. Yeah, I don't know how they do now. But you got Glenn Franklin. I didn't put him in there.
Oh, no.
It's hard to come up with just 4 names.
It'd be hard. It'd be tough.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
And yeah, and Coach, like I said, I'm prejudiced. Like my dad.
Yeah, that's all right.
Was one of the toughest.
Yeah, he sure was.
Well, that Goodspeed name, I tell you what, there's not a more historic name in rodeo.
No. Nope.
Yeah. Billy Hughes said, live here, you remember Billy. He says, your daddy made Bert famous. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, when your dad started riding Berts and Stars, he said, that's when Bert took off. And I said, well, he always rode them. But I don't know how famous he made it, but I said, really and truly, he said Star. He thought Star was the best horse. He said, Star, you breed a Bert mare to so-called Star. He said, he put the run in them. He put the get back in them. Quick, smart. And he said, Bert was kind of lazy. Older horses, they'd always stop. Don't get me wrong. He said, that's the last thing you had to do. Teach them, show them how to stop. He said, they just come here stopping. But he said, really, truly, Star. And he said, Bigger Boy. Crossed with him was hell of a horses. So, the main thing Billy Hughes said was, you got a Star or Bert Cross or one or the other. He said, everybody had a good horse. Said that some is a lot better, but there's always made a good horse.
That's still true today.
Yep.
Well, yeah, Fisher was the last had the Spurs and Stars supposedly, and I got to looking on the papers, some of them horses. Well, they said, boys in Georgia bought 4 head, and they had Spur on the paper 7 times and Star 5. I said, well, hell, they're all inbred. I said, I guess some of them. Daddy said, well, an inbred horse makes a good horse if it's really a good one or an idiot or little or something.
Mm-hmm.
But he said,
both. He was a little good idiot.
Well, he said, I don't know what the deal. But he said, usually their mind ain't right, or they either make a hell of a horse.
I've never had a horse you just didn't have to put up with something. Just one thing. I've never had a horse that was just perfect every which way you could think of. So. Well,
that horse I had bartender. I got him from Barry. Well, Glenn won the world on him. And he was a damn nice horse. But every time you saddle him up, and he knew, if you didn't have the bridle on him, Hackamore, I always rode him with Hackamore because he didn't have much mouth. But when you saddle him up, you better get ready to watch it because he's going to break it too. He'll run right over top of him, up right over you, and just take off. Go down through the parking lot to raising hell, bucking, squalling. And I just never got no hurry. I said, well, hell, he'll either pip himself or he'll stop. And I'd go on down there where he's at. He'd call it. His tail would be Keith. And he was out of a horse called Buddy Star. I Know What a Star. And you heard about the Know What a Stars.
Yeah.
They were damn sure buck. but they was good horses. And that's what he was, that's how he was bred. That's the closest thing I ever come to having a son of Oklahoma Star. But he was a good one. And he'd do that every time. I would tie him up to the trailer and left him for 30 minutes saddled and walk over and untie him and start to lead him off. And he'd just blow up. And I couldn't hold him, with just a halter. And I go catch him. And I've more than once, my daughter, she was about 5 or 6 years old. And I'd get him caught, bring him back, put the bridle on him, hackamore, and throw her up her own shoes, ride him off. I mean, that's just the way he was. But I think that's the reason he lasted so long. He's so damn tough.
Hey, I saw my dad leave one saddled so long one winter. When it came time to take the Navajo off of him, he had to skin it off with his knife. The hair done grow through the Navajo.
Really? Damn. He was tough, wasn't he?
Well, he was pretty bronky.
Right. Yeah. I really never cared for one like that. Now, Daddy's had some, but I don't know. They last a long time if they make them good. And I think you really truly, if I look back, when you get a horse that he might be a little tough, a little bronky, but when you get him, he may not score as good, but you get him scoring. If he gets to running in there, tracking, stopping, getting back. And when he gets out of the way after a while, he's just that way. And Daddy said, you never want a real smart horse. He said, a real smart horse to figure out what the hell to do to cost you. But he said, if one that's got athletic and works, and he said he'll stay. But he said, but he's held putting up with it for a while.
Well, Cody, boy, this has been a heck of an interview, hasn't it?
No, I know. I could just keep coming up with stuff to ask him all day, Jim.
I know it, but...
Well, there's a lot of things I don't like. It's just like different stuff. They tell different stories. Hell, I can't remember last time, but then I'll remember later on, But he was a character. And, they tell stories about different guys. Daddy said there, Uncle Bo was one time, one guy was drinking a little, and Daddy never did drink. He'd drink a half a bottle of beer, and his head bust wide open. He said, hell, I just couldn't drink. He said, and I'm glad I couldn't. But now, Uncle Buck, he'd take a shot of whiskey every once in a while.
I probably shouldn't have, Jimbo.
Mm-hmm.
But Uncle Buck, one time they sat there for a coffee deal, and I don't know what the hell the deal was. This one guy got to run in the mouth going on. They said, a little bit, Uncle Buck just flattened him. I mean, just wiped him out. And they said, Daddy said, Daddy walked up there right after it happened. He said, what the hell, what's going on? He said, I just got started running his mouth.
Sound like Captain Call.
And that's all it said.
Can't stand rude behavior in a man.
Right.
Huh?
I see he's like Captain Call off of Lonesome Duff.
Yeah, well, that's pretty bad. But, my dad always told me, he said, your friends will tell you if you can rope. And if they don't tell you, they're not really your friends. Either that or they're jealous of you. And he said, I don't want to be around a drunk. I don't want to be around a lying cheat or steal. And I said, okay. I knew damn sure better not come into drinking nothing. But then he looked at me and he said, and I damn sure don't like a smart ass. And I said, yes, sir. That's one thing. He never. Well, he just could put up with the drum, and he didn't like smart at it. But,
I'd have growed on him, Jimbo, before long. I would have definitely growed on his dad.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
but he was a good guy. Never caused no trouble. Never looked for trouble. But now he damn sure wouldn't walk away from it. But there's a lot of old guys like that back then.
Yeah, that's kind of the way they were turned back then.
Yeah. Well, they just kind of, goddamn, they was on their own. They had to make it, you know.
Yeah.
And, I had to laugh. Something about my uncle roping Crosby that time when it was over with. He knew Crosby didn't like Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, but he says, what's the best horse you think you ever rode stripping steers? Well, he knew what it was. And he said, well, I didn't like him. He said, I just looked at him and told him, said, Peanuts, Everett's horse. He said, he's the best damn horse there was. He'll give you a throw every trip. Said if he weighs 300, he won't drag him off. And if he weighs 800, he'll pull him to you. And you say, whoa, he's whoa. He said, that's just the way he is. And Crosby never said nothing. He said, well, you might be right. Turned around and walked off. But, Daddy said.
Heck, who ended up with Peanuts and popcorn there at the end?
Well, Peanuts died.
Did Shote end up with him and he killed him in a trailer wreck?
The one of
I thought he killed them both in a trailer wreck.
Popcorn was
two different.
I'll tell you what he did do. Remember Milligan and Roney? That Red Roan horse?
Yeah,
It was hell of a... John Pogue, I remember, he's sitting over in Cheyenne. I said, well, you're John riding, John. He said, that's Shote's horse. I said, you ain't riding no popcorn? He said, no. He said, I think it's a better horse. I said, really? He said, only Shote gets along with popcorn, really. He said, he's a good horse. But Shote wins a lot of money. He said, he's a good horse. But Peanuts died, Everett, I guess he was about 21 years old. He had Ada with his grandson. Sonny World's boy.
Neil.
And do I?
Neil Worrell.
Neil. Anyway, they was roping there, and they said, "Oh, Peanuts, he looked bad." I mean, Everett took care of him, but he just old. You know, he wasn't very pretty anyway. Hancock bred horse, you know. But Buck said that Daddy rode him. Said, "Hell, he said it's like riding in a car. You just run up on a rope. When you're ready to go, you trip. Leave when you want to, whatever." He said, it's automatic. But now Kelly Corbin said that he went and stayed with him a month at Everett. And he said, we tied about one steer a week down on them courses, roping time down. Now we log them, he's log them. And he said he had him a big old bill hanging there. It'd be his warm, but it was water and that little bit they used back then, Tuttles. He said he mixed that Tuttles with that water, and he's wiping down on his back and his legs, his shoulders, whatever. He done that every time he ride him. He'd tie him up and rub him down with that, and that's all he done. And rode him. Said he didn't practice on him, but he said he was a hell of a horse. And he said, Everett, they get up in the morning, go to the restaurant. And he said they'd go to the barn. So that's what they do. He said we tie. But he said I learned a lot from Everett. And he said I learned a lot from Ike.
Oh yeah.
He said Ike had a little horse, and you might probably remember him, a little brown stick-faced horse. He sold that horse to Kelly and them, he'll fly.
Yeah.
And then he had this little brown horse he got from Haythorns. And he said, one day we was out there, and he said he stayed there a month or two with us roping. He said every day he'd get on, he'd break away from 5 or 6 or 8. And he said, always scored some. And he said, one day, he said, Kelly, I need you to do something for me. He said, well, Ike, whatever you want, I will if I can. He said, I want you to tie one down on this horse. He says, well, have you tied down any on him? He said, no. He said, dang, Ike, I really don't want to do that. He said, you'll be all right. You do what the hell I tell you. And he said, I'll run up there and rope this steer. Got my slack, had the trip. I went 2 or 3 jumps, I just moved out. He said, that horse worked perfect. And I roped 3 steers on him, I believe he said. And he said, Ike said, you done everything perfect, Kelly. He said, I'm proud of you. And he said, that was unreal how good a horse that was. I've never had a horse kept steer tied down on him. And he said, I roped him 3, and it's just like if he'd been roped on all year. But he said I would just run up there and rope him, have him break away, score, never take a bad throw. And said he logged him. And said, when I went tied that first year down, he said, just like been doing it all the time. I said, that's unreal.
Yeah.
I said, them old folks had a lot to know about them.
They knew what they were doing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Bobby, we better wind this thing up. We've talked your leg off. And
well, I enjoyed it. I just, hell, I forgot today was Monday. I was sitting there, and I said, well, I guess y'all will call tomorrow. Hell, I never thought about being, New Year's and all the Christmas and everything. I said, damn, I'm behind all the time anyway.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I hope it works out all right.
Oh, yeah. And I'll let you know. I'll call you before it comes out and let you know how to listen to it, your family or whatever,
Okay.
And the nice thing
all
about
right.
this, your grandkids and great-grandkids and great-great-grandkids can pull this up someday, and say, that was my grandpa,
Well, let me ask you this. Do you have a tape of this? I mean,
No,
you make it.
We're taping it, but it'll be on Facebook, it'll be on YouTube, it'll be on Spotify. There's just several venues you can get it, and any of the kids in your family can find it, and it'll always be there. They'll be able to draw it up, forever.
Facebook and YouTube, huh?
Yeah.
I don't have none of that. I don't have none of it.
Well,
but. Anyway, somebody.
Oh yeah, somebody. But it's under the Cowboys of the Osage, is what it's called.
Cowboys of the Osage.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, and it won't be out yet, but it'll be out here in a week or 2, and I'll sure let you know and try to help you to find it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it, boys. It's good talking to you.
Nice talking to you, Mr. Goodspeed. It's been a pleasure
Yeah,
and an honor to talk to you. Thank you.
Hey, let me ask you this: where the hell is Pawhuska from here? I live about 35 miles. Well, I live 20 miles from Muskogee, between Haskell and Coweta, right close to Coweta. Where's Pawhuska?
Well, you just come on up to Broken Arrow and go north and a little west. We're about, 50 miles from Broken Arrow, probably.
You get on Highway 75 there, come up to Skytook, turn west.
Yeah.
You'll run into
Okay.
Pawhuska.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come up and see us and see the museum sometime.
Yeah, I will. My uncle been there, and I know Ben Johnson's there, and they had the big rope and all that.
Yeah.
But I said, where did I know? Well, I was in Pawhuska when I was about 14. Bobby Garrett, we lived out west of Pawhuska.
Yeah.
And Daddy and him and Wayne roped together, and they went to rodeo some together. But I was out there with Orby and Daddy. And that's the closest I've ever been to. I guess I went to town, Alaska.
Yeah.
Orbit's always going to town. You know, Orbit's always chasing some woman.
You'll probably come up here and visit us and just want to move up here, Mr. Goodspeed.
Well, you know, hell, I'm happy for a talk around somebody's cowboy or something like that.
Yeah.
I said, well, hell, I live in here in Oklahoma, and I said, I'm sure they got pins around here, but there's a boy across the road that ropes, Jeff Tyler, and he don't rope much now. But I said, there's nobody ropes around here. I said, hell, used to do. I'd go when I was a kid. I'd go everywhere. Somebody be roping. But when you get older, everything comes to the end. Daddy said, all good things come to the end.
Yeah.
And I said, I always wonder what the hell he's talking about. Well, when you can't go roping, every good thing comes in the end, I guess.
Well,
but he's right.
We sure thank you for taking time with us today. We appreciate it.
Well, I enjoyed it, boys. I hope I didn't screw up too bad.
No, you did good, and I'll be talking to you.
Okay, man. Talk to y'all later.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you bet.
I tell you what, Jimbo, this has been a good one.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's a historic family. I've seen the name on old rodeo posters. I've seen the name on old media guides. I've seen the name everywhere.
Right.
Now we know a lot more about them.
Yeah, for sure.
Because all I've really ever done before today is just know the name and see the name.
Right.
Now we know it.
My grandson, he's all the time getting on Google or something or Facebook or whatever, and he's all the time getting these posters of when Daddy was up and Uncle Buck was up, and he got one or two of me, but he was back in the 41, something like that. He's all the time bringing them up, but he's into it. He don't rope or nothing, but he's into it.
Well, he'll enjoy this podcast, you know.
Yep.
So
I think we'd like him. Sounds like Jimbo. He's into the same stuff we are.
I know.
All right.
Okay.
Well, until next week, everybody. This has been the Cowboys of the Osage podcast. One of our best ones yet.
Yep. Thanks, Bob.